remember, less than a month ago, um, the UAE was supposed to do a state visit to Kenya, and that was reversed. So, the Kenyan delegation went over there. The United Arab Emirates is I think the fifth or the sixth largest trading partner that Kenya has. Think about that. Everything from meat to charcoal to flowers, all those go to the UAE. I think the trade volume is about 450 billion Kenya shillings, which is significant. The other connection with the UAE is that the Rapid Support Force is heavily supported by the UAE because of the gold trade. So there's economic interests that are at play here. On the one hand, you have the RSF that has an economic interest in getting arms to take power. On the other hand, you have Kenya, which has an economic interest to get trade volumes through this comprehensive partnership agreement. Traditionally, Kenya's foreign policy has been that of the peacemaker, but what we are realizing now, it has also been one of passivity, both in pursuing our military, territorial, but more importantly, our economic interests, right? We're trying to be everybody's friend, even when some of the people we're trying to be friends with don't give two hoots about that friendship, and it doesn't benefit us in any way.
Dr. Wangusi.
Yeah, so I get all that, and believe me, if there's someone who has been in the thick of Rutoism, as you're describing it, that person would be me, right? And I'm not here as a spokesperson. I'm a critic, but I'm also recognizing that something about what he's doing is changing the status quo. Now, the question we're trying to answer, which I frankly don't have an answer, because he has not come out publicly and said, this is why I'm involved in South Sudan, right? He has positioned it as a relationship he formed with that's based on a relationship with the RSF, but there's no coherent reason that we can tie to. For example, there's a coherent reason we can tie M23 to Kagame or Rwanda, because we know there's that ethnic connection, right? But the RSF are not Kalenjins, or they're not of Kenyan descent, so we don't. That connection is a bit difficult for us to make. So I'm as ignorant about this as any other person out there, because we don't really know what the motivation is there. Whether the chickens have come on to roost, he has debts in the UAE, and some sheikh has called him and told him, you have to pay, otherwise to pay you have to call this guy and host him in Nairobi. We don't know what the machinations there are, but what we know is what you're all describing, which is traditionally Kenya's foreign policy has been that of the peacemaker, but what we are realizing now, it has also been one of passivity, both in pursuing our military, territorial, but more importantly, our economic interests, right? We're trying to be everybody's friend, even when some of the people we're trying to be friends with don't give two hoots about that friendship, and it doesn't benefit us in any way, right? So why should we be friendly to a hostile Sudanese general when maybe we don't even have significant trade? And if we establish our foothold or a beachhead through one political actor, that can change the dynamics, right? So I think there's a change in first, there's a change in terms of Kenya's economic standing in the world, because we used to be a low-income country, and a lot of this so-called peacemaking that we did was really being driven by international bodies, right? It was the UN using Kenya as a launching pad. Foreign governments kind of coercing parties to sit down in Kenya, right? So it looked good on paper, but the question I want to ask is, how did that benefit us? Because Geopolitics is about looking for what benefits you the most. And we are in a country and a region that has mineral resources, including oil. We are in a country with a population dividend. We're in a region with a population dividend. We're in a region with high potential for us to thrive economically, just even by trading with our partners. I mean, I don't see a problem if Congolese minerals are to be purified in Kenya before they go into the international market. That will benefit Kenyans. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's what the EU is doing. That is what America is doing. That's why America has footprints all over the world, right?
So,
And we are not a regional or a military power, but we have certain things that are going for us. First, we are very strategically located. We have a relatively strong army. We are relatively respected in the world, and I think I'm also departing from that mindset that Kenya
yeah.
needs to be passive, a passive player in regional politics by just being host to governments to come and have their negotiations there and then go off and sort their issues outside, and then the benefits are cured, go to other countries.
Well, Dr.
I'm also
Angusi,
departing from that mindset.
it's okay to depart from that mindset, but here's the problem, and you've rightly mentioned that a lot of these peacekeeping missions were being driven by international bodies. I can also bring a counter argument that these aggressive missions are also being done on behalf of international bodies. I don't think this is something that Ruto went and spent a night and thought, oh, I think it would be a nice idea if I contact those rebels in Sudan and tell them to come to Nairobi. There is an over 90% chance that there is some outside power that's puppeteering this move. And this is where we are here, thumping chest that we are trying to get economic benefits for Kenya. However, these economic benefits you're talking about, it would be good if this was driven by our own local foreign policy. But based on the history we have, the experience we have with this government, this is most likely strings being pulled by a power from outside to the benefit of someone that we don't know. There's some personal benefit that he might get, but I am seeing doubts with what benefit we might get now that we are almost cutting diplomatic ties with Sudan. We've seen other countries cut diplomatic ties on the African continent. No benefit has actually come out of it. So that's why, if it's a different system of foreign policy we are getting into, if it was internally driven, then there's an argument like, okay, let's wait and see. But the problem, we already know that Sudan, this conflict, has multiple proxies involved, from the US to Russia to the UAE to Saudi Arabia. So there's definitely also some outside movement that's coming on this decision. I honestly don't think that this was our own foreign policy decision, and part of the reason is because some of these decisions, they come in so randomly and rapidly that it doesn't even make any sense.